Don't worry, this is not a Knicks segment. DeAndre Jordan on his way to that was supposed to be the other team in New York, but the team in New York. How about DeAndre Jordan and Garrett Temple joining what now will not be the Mecca, let's call it the Temple, in Brooklyn Barclays Center, not just because my Islanders play there. Jordan, and oh, by the way, let's not bury the lead, Kyrie and KD. You've got the free agent fever in Brooklyn, and then some. Stop laughing at me, Mr. Blocker Charge. Julius Randle's number one fan, Rex Chapman down on the end. Man who knows more about math, certainly, than the two of us did combined or ever will do. And Wes Wilcox, who is taking us inside the architecture of the front offices and the decisions. And I'm here with you as well. Free agent fever presented by AT&T. A lot of moves, ton of guys off the board. Kawhi still out there, but narrowing in terms of choices because now officially there's no other max guy for him to bring to the Clippers. But Rexy, let's go back to the start of the day and the day's biggest story. Kyrie, KD, now that it is over, are you surprised at all that those two did go together and it's the Nets that was the choice for them?
I absolutely am. And I'm fully prepared to come on here and give you a lot of grief tonight. But I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball.
Okay.
And I played against Pat Riley's teams back in the 80s. And, man, Knicks fans are the best. And the New York Knicks deserve better than what they've been getting here recently.
Yeah.
And I've got, from Mike Rappaport to yourself, to tons of Kenny Walker who played with the Knicks. I'm just ready to see something different. And I love Julius Randle, Kentucky Wildcat, go Cats. But look, hey, man, this is free agency. They've targeted this summer for a long time to clear cap space. And when the New York Knicks don't come up with a team but their neighbors do, it's not a great look.
By the way, when you drop a slam dunk champ Kenny Skywalker line, you know I'm going to be nice to you the rest of the show easily, forever. Wes, when you sit there and you look at kind of where the Nets are moving forward, it's almost two different stories to tell here because you've got year one and then you've got when Kevin Durant's on the floor, right? Yeah. So I want to ask you now when you look at team constituted for this coming year because East is a little wide open. Brogdon and the Bucks changes, which we'll get into. Toronto may not have Kawhi if he goes to the Lakers. The Sixers are changed. How about the Nets and where they stand from a franchise and roster standpoint? No Durant yet, but this year with Kyrie, DeAndre, and Temple on the floor.
Oh, this team's going to be much better. They add veterans. They add proven leadership in a couple of those veterans. Kyrie's a little bit of an unknown, but we know who he is as a player. He's going to be better than D'Angelo Russell, who led this team to the playoffs. I like this move all around, and this is really the culmination of just a master class in building a franchise by Sean Marks. You know, he invested and built infrastructure, facilities, systems, staff, hired Kenny Atkinson, no draft picks, found a way to add to the team, drafted great, developed well, make the playoffs, and now they hit. And it looks like, you know, this now current report on DeAndre Jordan is they're going to get him $10 million. How are they going to do that? It looks like what they've done is they found a really creative kind of loophole with bonuses. And if they're able to put max bonuses that are unlikely, those don't count against the cap. But they might be likely for Brooklyn the following year. So what that looks like is they put 15% of Kyrie's contract and Kevin Durant's contract triggered to win 45 games and get to the second round of the playoffs. That means they're actually able to put the guaranteed portion of the salary below their current max, use that $10 million in collective room, give it to DeAndre Jordan, and then next year, right, those guys are going to hit those bonuses most likely if they win 45 and go the second round of the playoffs. And so now it's just like they've put the cherry on top in a fantastic way, manipulating their financial scenario to absolutely maximize their team. This is a great job.
I think we have to be careful in one regard with this. I love what Brooklyn's done, but we saw with the Celtics a year ago.
Yep.
You can't discount chemistry. And chemistry in that locker room is something that Brooklyn had this last year. And now they're sort of throwing caution to the wind and saying, look, we're bringing in these new guys, KD and Kyrie, who have been disgruntled at other places. And you're just sort of gambling with that. It's a great gamble, don't get me wrong, but let's not discount the chemistry.
Yeah, remember this, too. Don't discount depth because it's one thing that now we're not sure where it's coming from Philadelphia. We don't know if the Lakers will have any if they get Kawhi. But the Nets will have that. Don't forget Dinwiddie, a guy who's really on a nice contract for him another couple of years, a six-man of the year candidate who won't start here but is good enough to start on many. Hey, look, the Knicks would love to have him, right, starting on their team. You think of LeVert, Jarrett Allen, a growing player, and Joe Harris, who was a short-time teammate with the Cavs going back to Kyrie, who is also making a pretty decent number, not terrible. And, you know, when you look at it, this is a group that has a lot of different names, actually, in rotational players you could use.
And hey, I love my guy Taurean Prince. We drafted him here in Atlanta. This is a fantastic move. You know, they traded 2 first-round picks to Atlanta with Allen Crabbe's contract. People thought that was a dump, but they got Taurean Prince back, who's going to fit perfectly in their high-tempo, space, defend, and let-it-fly system. So they have done a fantastic job building, and I agree with you, Rex. It's uncertain with the personalities, but it's a bet you have to make if you're the Brooklyn Nets. And, you know, as you say, first it's Kyrie, then it's KD, and that's when it's really going to get interesting. Not so much this year, but next year. That's when it's going to get fascinating.
You know, sometimes there are these shows they have now. I hear Bravo channel with these love triangles, but you have movement going in different directions of point guards in, and then I got to find a new home, and I'll go with that team instead. So follow me, because now Kyrie goes to Brooklyn, leaves Boston. Kemba, who many thought would come home to New York, to the Knicks, instead then goes to Boston in his place. And speaking of homecomings, D'Angelo Russell with one you never thought would happen, maybe going back to L.A. as they are meeting today. So let's get to the other 2 point guards in this whole thing, in this triangle. Let's talk about Kemba, one of the greatest people in our game. I know you got to be happy for him, Rexy, in terms of getting a chance to be shown the love he's always deserved. He's gotten it from the city, but to me, not the organization as much. And is it sad in some ways that this is how things end with the Hornets?
Yes. You know, I've got a special affinity for the Hornets going back 30-some years. Kemba Walker is Mr. Hornet as far as I'm concerned at this point. I would have loved to have seen him stay. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, where's he going to end up, I would have said Brooklyn. How things have changed. But now you look and you go, hey, this team that the Celtics had 2 years ago, 3 years ago with Isaiah Thomas, they functioned pretty well. They functioned at a high level. You know that Kemba is great in the locker room. He's going to bring stability. He comes to play every single night. He's not a guy who's banged up a lot. I like this move for Boston. And then Terry ends up in Chicago or in Charlotte. I thought they were going to renounce him at some point. I thought there's no way that they can, this guy's a heck of an asset, and I'm glad to see that Terry ends up in Charlotte.
Speaking of teams Rex has an affinity for, and I have them up top of the list to teams to talk to Rex about, that would be Phoenix, who could have had many of these different point guards that we'll mention, but didn't, or draft them and then pay it's up there, I promise. Ricky Rubio.
They got one today,
They
baby.
did, for $51 million.
Yes, they did.
So we'll talk about that. Let's get into the D'Angelo Russell part of it, because I'm curious for both of you. He clearly, and in talking to him, you could tell there was a maturing, there was a humbling, right, in what happened in L.A. and a learning process for him. Why is version 2.0 D'Angelo Russell, if Kawhi doesn't go to the Lakers, because that's the if that's needed, why would he be a way better fit than the first time around for the Lakers?
Well, I mean, a couple years earlier, more established as a player. He's an all-star. And, one of the things players often have to do is they have to change teams to realize that, the grass is not always greener. Every situation is going to have its challenges. And he's going to come back to L.A. if he ends up back with the Lakers, just a much more mature person and better overall player. So it makes sense, but it's interesting. We got to go through, and all these numbers are flying around. But if Kawhi ends up with the Lakers, we start to wonder where D'Angelo is going to end up. Maybe it's the Knicks, who still have some cap room, and we've certainly heard all this sign and trade options with Minnesota. But it's fascinating because as these dominoes fall, D'Angelo is, you would think, really hoping that Kawhi goes to the Clippers or Toronto, and then it's a natural fit for D'Angelo to fill in with the Lakers.
And by the way, we were talking about this earlier, and this is the fun part of all this, and this is kind of moving pieces together. Kawhi and Minnesota, also kind of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game, just 1 degree of Kawhi. Follow me. Because if you sit there and you're Minnesota and you're looking to move contracts, right, for D'Angelo Russell, well, if Kawhi were to go to the Lakers, right, which means D'Lo doesn't go there, and it looks like Minnesota could be the top place for him because Phoenix is out and he doesn't want to go to the Knicks. Well, guess where they could have a match, Minnesota, unload that money? How about Toronto, where Andrew Wiggins is from where? Remind me? Canada. That's right. So when you look at Serge Ibaka, who now you have him and Gasol, and Ibaka making 20, whatever it is, this is the numbers guy, but follow me here, you now could bring Wiggins if you want to. Now, look, he's not Kawhi Leonard, but at least maybe